It's an honor for me to introduce Kevin Plank, a man whose professional accomplishments over the past 2 decades are a testament to the power of having an idea and pursuing it with conviction. Kevin's is a bootstrap story about building a product and then rebuilding it again and again until it was good enough to disrupt an industry and create an entirely new category, all from the ground up. Technically, I should say from below ground because the original headquarters for Under Armour was located in Kevin's grandmother's basement in her Georgetown row house. In Kevin's current office overlooking Baltimore Harbor, you'll find a massive grid of whiteboards where Kevin scribbles different themes and inspirational mottos that provide a glimpse behind the curtain at what motivates him. But here's the thing. We don't really need to look any further than the way Kevin Plank lives his life, day in and day out, to see his values in action. So Kevin, with your permission, here are 4 themes that your story inspired in me. Number 1, create the conditions for your success. At every point in his life, Kevin Plank has demonstrated a fanatical work ethic, hustle, drive, and downright badassery that assured that when his moment came, he would seize it with every ounce of his energy. Whether shoveling snow as a kid for a few extra bucks, selling bracelets at Grateful Dead shows. Wait, Kevin, I got that bracelet from you? I still have that bracelet. Running a rose delivery service every Valentine's Day at the University of Maryland, or fighting his way to captain honors as a walk-on for the football team, Kevin Plank has earned every opportunity that has come his way. Number 2, adversity sets up your next opportunity. Kevin Plank will be the first to tell you that it wasn't always smooth sailing. In the early days when professional athletes weren't receptive to trying his products, Kevin went to the collegiate and high school level instead, visiting local equipment managers and winning over the next generation of influential brand ambassadors. When the NFL asked to visit his office before signing one of his first big deals, and he was still set up in grandma's basement, Kevin got all his cash out of the bank. He couldn't afford to have the credit cards declined, and instead took them out to lunch at Morton Steakhouse to seal the deal. So for Kevin Plank, every problem is just an opportunity waiting to be conquered. Number 3, stand for something. The Under Armour brand is defined by the core values of quality, performance, and innovation. But underlying these pillars, and of equal importance to Kevin Plank, is the important role that Under Armour plays in the Baltimore area. Whether it's the nonprofits that he created and funds, or the jobs Under Armour has brought to the Chesapeake Bay area, Kevin has never once lost sight of the belief that what's good for the brand is also good for the community. And finally, number 4, never be satisfied. What's next after building a multi-billion-dollar enterprise from sports apparel, applying the same lens of innovation and restless energy to athletic footwear? And after that box is checked, what's next? How about dominating the exploding category of fitness tech and creating the world's largest digital health and fitness community? Kevin Plank is tireless by nature, and I have no doubt that as I stand here today lauding his journey toward becoming the 2nd biggest sportswear maker in North America, he is thinking of the next move in his playbook that will help him reach number 1. That's how you grow a business from a few fabric samples and $17,000 a year in sales to a powerhouse with a market cap of over $17 billion. And that's how Kevin Plank embodies all the amazing things that can happen when you simply believe in yourself. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm BC CEO Club welcome to the founder, CEO, and chairman of Under Armour, Mr. Kevin Plank.
That was amazing. Thank you very much, Karen. That's a lot more than we talked about on the phone. And I want to introduce my sister, Karen Kaplan, doing that. Mom would be really happy. We're a lot nicer than we were when we were just kids. It's great to be here, and what an honor. The Boston College Chief Executive Club. A lot of protocol. Warren, thank you very much for having me here, but a very specific way to do things. I typically lean into these things with like a video. It sort of sets the tempo, and it takes a lot of the heavy lifting off of me. That won't be the case today. So instead, I'm going to lean on the men and women in the room who are actually wearing our underwear today. I want to thank you, beginning with you, Karen, of course. Sounds like, and it is. It's common practice for people to walk up to me, in a men's room and just say, Under Armour guy, right? Yeah. Take a look at this. I encourage it, people. I encourage it. So thank you very much. A lot of friends in the room as well. First of all, Father Leahy and Boston College, where we just extended a new 10-year partnership with them and have had an amazing run all the way back to Gene DiFilippo giving us that opportunity. Now Brad Bates, their great athletic director, and I think the coaches and everything else. So we're incredibly excited about that. Sam Kennedy, our friends from Fenway Sports too, thank you very much for always welcoming us to Boston the way that you do. And then Jonathan Kraft, Jonathan, you and Robert have been original shareholders in Under Armour and some of our biggest supporters and fans, as well as helping for mentorship and counsel along the way. So I want to appreciate and say thank you to all of those people in the room who helped me. So what I want to do is maybe just give you a little bit of a basics, and I've had all sorts of people telling me, boy, let me tell you about the bad speeches. So the bad speeches are the guys that stand up there and read. These old guys, they sit there and they just go through the thing. You got to talk from the heart. You got to talk from the heart. So I promise, number one, I'm just going to talk from the heart today. But as I do that, I'll give you a little bit of where we've been, a bit of where we are, and especially where we're going as a company. And hopefully, it shouldn't take too much time. We'll leave some time for Q&A, and I'll let you fire away at me and some of the things that maybe Under Armour questions has inspired you about our business. Karen covered, a good part of it, but I think, our story was founded really out of need. As a kid, growing up, the youngest of 5 boys in Kensington, Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C., all I wanted to do is I wanted to play big-time college football someday. It was my goal, my dream, my ambition in life. And I wasn't, I had ambitions probably bigger than I was probably qualified to think, but, when did that ever stop anybody? And so from that moment in time, from growing up through grade school and started playing, tackle football in the 4th grade, touch football in 1st grade, tackle in 4th grade, all the way up through high school. In my first high school, where my 4 brothers had gone before me, Georgetown Prep, where the Jesuits saw to my education. And after my sophomore year, I decided I was going to make a change and that the Christian Brothers would suit me in a better way at the Jesuits' choice. So I moved from Georgetown Prep to St. John's. I finished my high school education, but college still wasn't quite right for me. And so after 2 years of prep, 2 years at St. John's, I went to a place called Fork Union Military Academy. And it was really, Fork Union was probably part of the foundation of where Under Armour came from. Now, Fork Union is one of those places in Fork Union, Virginia, right in the center of Culpeper County, about 90 minutes from Charlottesville. It's the kind of place your parents send you. I'm going to pull up the hand quotes, the air quotes, to build character for a year or so. And I did just that. But on my team, we had a lot of special guys. And on that one high school postgraduate team, because it's where you go to play another year of ball, and it doesn't count against your college eligibility. And some guys go there for grades, some guys go there for maturity. I went there for really all the above. And in doing so, I met my teammates. And on that team, we wound up having 23 guys on my high school team sign Division I-A scholarships. 14 of them wound up being drafted into the NFL. 4 wound up being first-round draft picks. And one of them won the Heisman Trophy, and a guy named Eddie George. And it was that where I'm looking at this network, and I didn't know it at the time, but I realized I had these friends and these relationships. And between that and between the guys from my high school team, we were pretty good. We won the city championship my senior year. There were another 11 guys playing Division I football that I knew from there. At Maryland, there was at any given time, there were 25 guys that had signed and were playing in the NFL. And I realized that I had this network at a very young age. And you look around, and so often I think young people are thinking, who do I know? Who can I talk to? Where does it begin? And it always begins with the people that you do know, the things that are closest to you and to your heart. And to me, it was this network. And I remember thinking, I know probably 50, 60 guys playing in the NFL, a dozen guys playing Major League Baseball, NHL, all these guys that I know, and just athletes. And they had this limited window of time where they were going to be with cameras in their face and making all this money. And instead of being the obnoxious third cousin that calls and says, can you loan me money? Can you send me $500? But if I could actually create something, a good that wouldn't cost them anything, but would be easy and more importantly, would help them in their craft. And it was really the connections that I knew before the product even. And I was thinking, and I'd had this product concept because as an athlete at the University of Maryland, I was never the tallest, the biggest, the usual thing. I was happy to be on the field, and I loved competing and playing with the guys. But I always bothered me, the way the cotton T-shirt felt beneath your equipment. Why doesn't someone make a better alternative to a short sleeve cotton T-shirt in the summer and a long sleeve cotton T-shirt in the winter? And think about it, before Under Armour, no one had ever invented or even addressed what athletes wore beneath their equipment. Innovation was always limited to the shoe or maybe the equipment or some other piece, but apparel was secondary. It was just the cloth covering that you used to designate which team was which. And I thought to myself, it was crazy because as an athlete, a cotton T-shirt dry weighed about 6 ounces, but once it became saturated, it could weigh anywhere between 2.5 and 3 pounds. Now think about what that means. Now, everybody always asks, I don't have some extraordinary gland issue with sweating or anything else. But like anybody else, I'd go out for first half, and whether I was A, sweating, or B, it was raining outside, you're pouring water on your head to stay cool. All the above, any of the above. And your shirt would just get that wet, heavy feeling. And you think about sports, in general, but these are games of inches. These are games of milliseconds, of moments, of just barely missing, not getting that tackle, or just barely not getting to that player who breaks around under the basket. And you're thinking is that no one had really addressed this opportunity. And when I thought about it, I looked at it and I said, there's this massive, massive opportunity. So one thing was certain when I was graduating school was that I wasn't going to go work for anybody else. And as Karen mentioned, it was shoveling snow and my 8s and 9s and 10-year-olds to mowing grass to, there's a much longer story about selling T-shirts at Grateful Dead concerts and selling bracelets at Grateful Dead concerts. But it really came down to when I was in college, as an athlete, you're not allowed to have a job. But it never said anything in the NCAA about not starting a company. And so the one window that we had in the college football calendar was that window around Valentine's Day. And so in lieu of being, college kids couldn't spend $70, $80, $90 for a legitimate dozen flowers, so I thought they should get an illegitimate dozen flowers from me. So my freshman year, set out, found a wholesale rose guy and set out to sell 100 dozen flowers. Did so, had this artist friend of mine draw up a caption, stuck these flyers all over campus, and had myself, who's now my wife at the time, was my one partner teammate that I had at that time, and we put together these 100 dozen flowers, called it $25 rose delivery, and got them out there, $5 delivery charge, had about $500 in costs, made about $3,000, pocketed $2,500, said this is great. Came back my sophomore year, we did close to 350 dozen. My junior year, 650 dozen. My senior year, 1,186 dozen flowers delivered in a single day. 7 phone lines coming into the dorm room, 45 drivers getting them out there. And the only reason that I remember the number 1,186 is because the intent was selling 1,500 dozen flowers that day. And watching 314 dozen or 24 dozen flowers die on you was a very early lesson in 2 important business things that I would never do again. Is number 1, never deal in live inventory ever again. Because you get these phone calls from people and saying, you guys, you sent my girlfriend, you sent her yellow flowers and they were dying, and she said yellow meant friendship, so she dumped me. And this is like 3 days up, no sleep and everything. By the end of Valentine's Day, I'm like, pal, if she dumped you over yellow flowers, you had problems long before you called me. So learning customer service was very important. And the second key learning in that was most importantly, make sure everybody that works with you can count to 12. So I'm not even going to go down that line either, but you probably get where I'm going. But it was that, I missed out on that other 300 some odd dozen of possible profit, but I made about $17,000 that year, and that was the money that I used to start Under Armour with. And it wasn't OPM, it wasn't angel money or venture or anything else. And I'm always quick to tell any entrepreneur, as many of the CEOs and distinguished guests in here know, is the cheapest capital you can find is sitting in your inventory somewhere. So go sell that versus letting somebody else invest their money in you, and you make the decisions for what's happening with your business. So I was lucky enough to do that, and I put together the $17,000, the $40,000 in available credit card opportunity that I had at the time. And I set up shop, as Karen said, in a little row house in Georgetown. Not a bad place to be at 22, 23 years old, fresh out of school, about 3 blocks from Georgetown University, living upstairs, sales office on the ground floor, keeping inventory in the basement, and said, I'm going to start this business. And the first thing I need to do is make the product. And so that concept of how do you make a better shirt, because to solve that problem for the athlete. So with nothing more than sort of the gumption of, let me try this idea, the spring of 96, went to a local fabric store. I bought some material that fit the concept I had, this sleek, synthetic, stretchy material. Took it to a local tailor. I brought him a tight little white Hanes t-shirt and said, sir, can you make as many t-shirts that look like this tight-fitting shirt, cotton t-shirt, out of this synthetic material? So 7 prototypes later and probably close to $500 in cost from that tailor, he raked me over it, and I didn't know what I was doing. But I had enough to bring that product back to my teammates who were then practicing spring practice at the University of Maryland in that spring. And from that, they tried them, and the guys liked it. And what surprised me was that of the 7 shirts I passed out, one of the guys was also a baseball player. And he said, hey, Plank, he said, I like the shirt a lot, but the other guys on the baseball team want them. Another one of the guys also played lacrosse. And he said, hey, Kevin, he said, the guys on the lacrosse team like it. And actually, my girlfriend plays on the girls' lacrosse team. She likes it too. Do you think we could get another, they'd want one. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, my gosh, what an amazing opportunity. This isn't just a new product, it's an entire category. No one had ever addressed what athletes wore beneath their equipment. And from that, I was like, I'm in. I'm pouring my cash, my hard-earned time. I didn't know anything about manufacturing, got in my car, drove up to this place I'd read about called the Garment District, parked at 34th and 7th Avenues, started walking around and just learning how manufacturing worked. And, little known kind of a crazy fact as you think about it is that, in 1975, 95% of the apparel that was produced or sold in this country or consumed in this country was actually manufactured in this country. By 1995, when I was starting Under Armour, it was down to 50%. Today, it's less than 5% of apparel consumed in this country is manufactured here. And so you wonder, if I came up with the same idea today, would the Garment District even be there for me to go figure out how to make my first lot of 500 t-shirts? And I say that almost just as an aside that says, where have we gone with this? But hopefully ourselves and others and some people from the 210 Foundation were talking about what innovation can mean in things like apparel and footwear manufacturing and the things that we can really do to change the way that has been. So setting up shop in Grandma's basement, we wound up doing close to $18,000 that first year in business in 1996, just selling product to my friends. And I had a 1992 Ford Explorer. I get in, I'd go on these road trips. I did 47,000 miles in 1996. I did 48,000 miles in 1997, just road trips, sending product to everybody I knew, every friend. And everybody got a package of 3 t-shirts. And it said, do me a favor and try this t-shirt. And if you like it, give one to each guy in the locker next to you. And it was that word of mouth growth that really inspired Under Armour. And I said, and if you guys want more, I said, do me a favor, tell your equipment manager and have him call me, and he'll place the order. So from that, we did grow. And from that first $17,000+ in 96, we did $110,000 in 97, $400,000, $1.3 million, $5 million. So 5 years to our first $5 million. Second 5 years, growing from 5 to just under $300 million. That was the year we went public in 2005. The next 5 years, growing from just under 300, crossing the $1 billion milestone. That was 2010. And this past year, we crossed $3 billion in 14. Our latest outlook for this year is continued 20+% revenue growth, just under $4 billion. So I'm very proud of that, and only in America. So within all that growth, we grew 32% last year in 2014. We grew 25% last quarter. We've had 20 consecutive quarters of 20+% revenue growth, one of only 2 companies in the S&P 500 that can make that claim. And our intent is that doesn't stop anytime soon. And you think about what got us here. Since we IPO'd in November of 2005, 9.5 years now public, we've averaged 30% top line and equally 30% bottom line growth, making money. It's important. And as you think about what happens when you say that, if we average just 21% growth for the next 5 years, Under Armour, which took 15 years or 19 years to get to the 18 years, get to the first $3 billion, in the next 5 years, we could be a $10 billion brand, tripling our business. And that's how we think about our opportunity. And that's how we think about how do we deal with scale, how do we deal with growth, is because it's a constant, dilemma. And look, I've lived, as I said, 9 years plus as a public company CEO and constantly hear the questions of, are you the right person? Should you be running this company? I'm going, who the hell else are you going to get? I mean, I don't know how you prepare for this stuff. You do the best you can, but one thing is consistent as Under Armour is we say the only one who gets you fired at Under Armour is someone who says that's the way we've always done it. It is about constant change. It's about embracing it and looking and saying, it's taken us 18, 19 years to get to this point. We can do 2.5 times that number, in just the next 5 years. So how you prepare for that is a massive, massive deal. So all these things, though, they lead back to our mission statement as a company, which we say is to simply make all athletes better. But we do it through passion, design, and the relentless pursuit of innovation. And I can tell you it's no accident why the word passion comes first when we give our mission statement. It's because you better have that. You better love sport. You better care about what you do. And it better be something that is felt. It's interesting. I was doing an interview not too long ago. I was interviewing someone for a job, and they were coming from another company that whose CEO, I believe, spoke here. And they're located on the West Coast not too long ago. And they were talking to me, and I was going over, and it was for the women's position. This is several years ago. I remember I'm coming over the table and I'm going like, you've got to come here. You've got to help me. We're going to change the way, young girls think about themselves, their inspiration, what we're going to do. I remember looking at me and going, why are you so passionate about this? Like, we're not exactly curing cancer here. And I remember saying that, and I remember just thinking like, oh my gosh, like what a punch to the gut. What is that? How could you think about your career and your life as to not truly changing people's lives? And so a couple weeks went by, and I was actually on a store tour, and that was something that kept me up at night. I was thinking about. I was actually out at a store, and in the Pacific Northwest of all places, and I'm watching retail, and it's getting like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's what I do for a living. We'll do it after here. We're going to go walk retail, and talking about a store here on Newberry as well. And this all of a sudden this mom comes in. She's got these 2 little boys, one maybe 8, the other one maybe 10 years old. They walk in, and sure enough, little 8-year-old, stands there. He goes, Mom, look, Under Armour. And she's like, can we see you go? Can I go? And she didn't have a ring on her finger, and she kind of had this look like, don't go over there. That stuff's expensive. I don't want you doing that. And so I'm watching this happen in the back, and I'm like, go, break away, go. So little kid, mom gets distracted, kid breaks away, he runs over the section. It's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and he grabs this Under Armour compression shirt. So he's like just out of school, still has his collared shirt on. He grabs this compression shirt, he sticks his little head through it, shoves his arm through it, pulls it down over his body, walks out in the middle of the aisle, and his mom's over there working with the older little 10-year-old boy, and he just goes, hey, Mom! He goes, look at me, I'm wearing Under Armour. I can do anything like this. And he holds his hands up. And he's making this muscle sign. And I'm thinking to myself, here's this person telling me that, what do we do for a living? We're not curing cancer. And I'm thinking, I don't know what that little boy did or didn't want to do. But I know before he might have thought he was, not good enough to go out for the team. Maybe couldn't make varsity. Maybe couldn't, try out with his friends. Maybe just wasn't cool enough to sit at the cool kid table and stood there shaking with his lunch tray when he's sitting at lunchtime. And you think, but today he's got something different because today he's got an edge and an advantage. Today he's wearing Under Armour. And I'm thinking like every product that we build, every shirt, every shoe, it better live up to that. It better give that little boy that confidence. And more importantly, it better work. Because that's what a brand is. That's what a brand does. It inspires people to believe that they can do more. And I can march 30 scientists here and tell you why we make the best apparel and footwear in the world. But at the end of the day, it's about never compromising that and making sure that everything speaks to that DNA. So we'll always, hopefully, deliver that. And the way we do it today is something we call our growth drivers. There's something been consistent for us since we IPO'd back in 2005. Men's apparel, women's apparel, footwear, international, and direct consumer. And quite simply, it means that our goal, which is men's is our largest category, is someday to have women's be larger than our men's business, because it should. To someday have footwear, which is still about 11-12% of our business, should be larger than our apparel business as a whole. And to take those product categories of men's, women's, and kids, and take them country by country around the globe, And where we can't find the appropriate retail distribution, we'll open our own retail stores. Like that in most simplistic way of how we expect to grow our business and our company. And you think about it, our men's business has had a great run. Again, it's our largest business, but we've also been adding assets to it. And people like, this is a gratuitous name drop, but Jordan Spieth, anybody watch golf here? But how about our young golfer, Jordan Spieth? He's unbelievable, and he's as good of a person as you think he would be too. One of my favorite people on earth is Tom Brady, and that's my local crowd, and I'll tell you, I believe Tommy is one of the best people that I've met as a human and someone incredibly as honest as the day is long and as the highest integrity that I've met of anyone in athletes and anyone in business. Our women's business, we made 2014 about the year of the woman. We introduced this personality to the world, and she was there. She did the hard work herself, but her name's Misty Kaplan, and she's the lead soloist of American Ballet Theater. And we had this campaign that was about, she was too short, she was didn't have the right body type. She grew up in Los Angeles, didn't start to ballet until she was 13 years old. And she's now the first African-American lead soloist at a major ballet company. And her story, and again, more importantly, was just named to Time Magazine's 100 most influential people on the planet, and one of the 5 covers that Time Magazine used. We believe in the momentum of our women's business. Our footwear business is something that continues to grow like a rocket ship as well. 44% growth last year, 37+% in the last quarter. And again, having assets, whether it's Jordan, whether it's Tommy, whether it's Stephen Curry, who is going to come back strong in the next couple of days. Any of you doubters out there are worried about the king. We're not worried about the king. We're worried about Steph, and he's fine. He's going to crush it. Our international business grew 96% in 2014, 78% last year. We're opening over 100 stores, and again, today we've got about 125 outlets in the United States. We've got about, we ended the year about 57, just under 60 stores globally. And again, as I said, we'll add over 100 stores around the world this year. And again, looking at marquee retail at places like Newbury Street and places like Patriot Place as well, Jonathan, that we're looking at and thinking and working. We just opened a new brand house in Chicago on Michigan Avenue, right at Michigan-Ohio Avenue. It's at 30,000 square feet, and the reaction has been just terrific. Is that people, because I'll talk to you about our direct consumer and e-commerce, but the world deserves experiences, and it's our job to give that to them. As we do think about the other opportunities we have, I mentioned direct consumer and talking about stores. But e-commerce, the same story for us is what everyone hears. Our e-commerce business is growing at a rate which is really hard to fathom. On Cyber Monday in 2013, we did about 9% of our transactions on mobile devices. Just anecdotally, on Cyber Monday 2014, we did close to 30% of our transactions on mobile devices. So the same scale that you're hearing about what's happening with the world of digital is something that we are grabbing in as big a way as anyone, I hope. We've taken the idea of digital and moved it from just being what is it about our website to what's the way that we can truly live to our mission statement. How do we make all athletes better? How can we inspire athletes to be more? How can we broaden the definition of who is not an athlete? And so as we've done that, we've created this category called Connected Fitness recently. I just want to take 1 second. I'd love to take some questions from you. But the idea of Connected Fitness was very simple. At the end of 2013, we purchased a company called Myfitnesspal based in Austin, Texas. And prior to this, we'd played around with things like wearable devices, hardware equipment like a heart rate strap. At the NFL Combine in 2010, we introduced a product called Armour 39, which was a T-shirt that would have biometric measurement of G-force and reality of like what's happening with the athlete's body real time. And we realized that equipment was very difficult. But we realized that there was going to be great companies that would be coming out with new equipment. And the role that we decided to play was going to be the role of the community. And it was with that when we bought MapMyFitness in 2013, we also bought with it their 20 million registered users that were growing at about 30,000 plus users a day. And with that growth, we thought that we could create some scale and that we would anchor on the community. We want to be the destination. Because think about your health today. If I asked the show of hands of how many people in here know their blood type, if you're not O positive, you have no idea. Think about when you go to see your doctor, you walk into the office every 6, 12, 18, 24 months, whatever it is, and he pulls out or she pulls out a manila folder, and they start asking with the data that you saw and when you saw them 24 months ago. And you're thinking to yourself, there must be a better solution. I mean, we know more about our cars than we do about our own bodies. how much gas, how much oil, how much tire pressure. I can run a diagnostic test on my car. But when it comes to my own body, I have no idea. And we're thinking, what's the role that's going to be played in the future? And we believe there's one where we can. There's 4 components that we're really targeting and focusing on, which is sleep, which is activity level, which is fitness level, and which is nutrition. And so we doubled down on this bet from 2013, the beginning of this year, and we made 2 more acquisitions, a company called Endomondo, which is, and again, MyFitness was like, I'm going to go for a run, and so you hit the app, and it tracks how far you went, the distance, the time, your splits after each mile, et cetera. Endomondo was a very similar company, but they were based in Copenhagen. We then made a 3rd acquisition in a company called Myfitnesspal. And I'm going to guess, but I don't know how many Myfitnesspal users in here. I'm not going to ask to raise your hand, but how many people in here have lost 10 pounds or more using Myfitnesspal? Anybody show of hands? Yes. And you start finding some of the zealots that will be out there about, imagine being able to affect change. You know, I say, like, what is a brand's job or our role? Because one thing we know is certain is that the more people exercise and work out, and across our connected fitness platforms that now today totals over 130 million people on our platforms, signing up over 120,000 people downloading one of our 4 apps each and every day, is the more that they work out, and we logged over 500 million workouts in the first year to date, just in 2015 so far, the more shirts and shoes they're going to buy. And that's something which is incredibly simple for us. And again, as this thing plays out, we feel like we have the opportunity to be in an incredible leadership position. So I'm happy to answer a few questions on that. And I think we've got about 8 or 9 minutes, and I'm happy to do that. And just 2 final things I just wanted to say, and every time, is that, number one, I'm incredibly proud of the opportunity that Under Armour has been given. It's the function of my team and what our team's been able to do. And that there's people and there's men and women in situations of harm overseas, and I always want to thank them for giving us the opportunity to be here in America to do that. I'd like to give a round of applause to them. And the last statement would just be on entrepreneurship. You know, I'm proud of Under Armour for a number of reasons, and I'm proud and I'm excited about the opportunity we have, but I'm also proud of the fact of what we represent. Of that, I like the fact that, you know, yeah, I was a football player from Maryland and was able to build this company. And, you know, the more we can inspire that, I believe it's our country's greatest asset, and it should be our greatest export. And you're seeing the rest of the world, it's not a U.S. thing anymore. The rest of the world is getting involved as well. So whenever I give advice or have a talk, I always say the first thing I could do, if you could leave here and do anything, any action item at all, definitely go visit unarmour.com. But in addition to that, next time you're driving down the street and you see a little kid standing there with a lemonade sign, it says 25 cents or 50 cents, no matter what you're doing, pull over and buy a cup of lemonade. Let them feel good about what happens when they go home and say, you know what, I did this myself. You know, I made this cup of coffee and I made this money. And if their parents are doing it the right way, they're going to teach them important lessons in life, like taxes, cost of goods, raw materials, things like that. And make sure you get it back from them too. Teach them the hard lessons in life. But I mean that about, you know, encouraging entrepreneurship. I'm really proud, I think, of the reputation our brand's been able to build, and more importantly, what we're going to do going forward. So that concludes my formal remarks, and happy to take any questions. So please open it up. I think there's 2 microphones. If
And the guy next to me always seems like he needs to lose weight. I feel like we have a national crisis with obesity and health and all that sort of stuff, joking aside. And one time they charged me extra $50 because my bag was 5 pounds overweight. The guy next to me was 100 pounds more than me. What can we do to really get more people inspired to take care of themselves and all of us?
I think it's an incredibly great point, because I could go 2 ways with this conversation. I'm going to leave the first thing that come to my mind out, and I'm going to get to the point. I think it's a travesty that our solution is to build bigger airline seats. I think it's a travesty that we're not addressing that, you know, this country has an obesity issue, which is a problem. I think it's a travesty that we're focused on building larger hospital systems versus looking at things like what proactive medicine could be. And I think the goal and the vision that we have for what connected fitness is, imagine if you could have a score or something that could help you. And again, what Myfitnesspal has done is that, you know, there's over 90 million registered users on Myfitnesspal alone. That means that of the 130 plus million that we have, that means that we have the largest food database in the history of the world. And not only can we help tell people, like, make suggestions of what the right things to eat, but again, things that you like in restaurants that are close to you. You know, you don't have to make poor choices because, you know, our own bodies are about the choices that we make. And so the more things we can do to inspire them to make better choices, I believe is the role of a brand. You know, just to make shirts or just to make shoes, that's our core business. And believe me, it's written in red ink in my office. It says, of all the cool things that you do out there, sponsor athletes, teams, et cetera, don't forget to sell shirts and shoes. But within that, I think there's a responsibility, is that brands are meant to have a point of view. And our point of view is that if we can inspire people, you know, you hear them, you know, to work out one more time, to take one more exercise, to just inform you and give you the information. I think that's where we are right now, to help people measure it. And I believe when we can get people to measuring it, we can get them to make better informed decisions that allow them to take action that will affect change. And with the size of the community, with predictive analytics, with smart people that are weighing in on these problems right now, I think there's probably too much to go into for any one time. I can tell you that I believe, you know, when we started this in the middle of 2013, I looked around and I said, what are we doing about digital? What are we doing about connected fitness? What are we doing about health? You know, Fitbit, Jawbone, all these companies out there. What's our play? And what I recognized, we had about 60 collective people on our team between our e-commerce and our Armour 39, the product that we launched in 2010 at the Combine. And I just said, you know, we're just not moving fast enough. And here we are 2 years later. We've got a headquarters in San Francisco. We've got, with the Myfitnesspal acquisition, a headquarters in Austin, Texas. We'll have close to 500 people on our team by the end of this year. In 2013, I think we had less than a dozen engineers in our company. Today, we have several hundred engineers and developers that are part of that Myfitnesspal, Endomondo, and Under Armour record team, and Map My Fitness and Under Armour record team. So I think we're incredibly proud, I think, of what's being built, and more importantly, there's much more to come from us, and we expect to lead there. Yes? Where's the next microphone? Perfect. Maybe give her the microphone now.
You spoke about the ongoingness, if you will, of change. What are the criteria that you use in working out an endorsement situation with athletes? And also, should that athlete's status and favorability change, how do you work out those situations?
Well, it's amazing in the world of social media of how athletes are valued, is because you're looking at, you know, how many followers do they have, how many Twitter followers do they have, how many Facebook likes do they have, and amazingly enough, the first human who crossed 100 million likes on Facebook, anybody know who that was? It was Shakira, by the way. But like, so should we sign Shakira? I'm not sure about that. But we're hyper aware, I think, of the influence that athletes have. And with that influence comes the good and comes the bad sometimes. And we've all seen some of the stories play out of what's the wrong thing to do. You know, for our company, I'm incredibly proud of our marketing and our sports marketing teams. I think of the assets we've brought on board. You know, people like Jordan Spieth recently, people like Stephen Curry, people like Andy Murray in tennis. You know, we have, I think, incredibly high standard. And the thing for us is that you know what you're getting into. You know, I don't know how else to say it, but, you know, when you sign an athlete, you know, we're not looking and saying we're going to be the highest check out there. And whether it's a school deal, a league deal, a team deal, an athlete specifically deal, it's our job is to find, I think, the best people that fit the DNA of our company. And these are ones that have typically been wearing our product long before. They're coming to us and saying, I want to be on the team. I want to be a part of what you're building at Under Armour because I'm an Under Armour guy. I'm an Under Armour gal. And that mentality is something which is, you know, very, very important to us. And but I do think it's a brand's job to support their athletes because, look, people are going to have highs and they're going to have lows as well, and none of us are perfect. But I do think there's a certain standard that we're all accountable to, particularly when you're making the paychecks and you're on the front pages and those other things. So I think they're all hyper aware of it as well. But we live under that. We live under that blanket. Yes.
Hello. So you talked earlier about the only way to get fired at Under Armour is to say this is the way we've always done it.
Yes.
How do you keep that in a company that's growing as rapidly as you guys are growing? How do you get that culture to stay with that hungry mentality?
You know, the name of our cafeteria is called the Humble and Hungry Cafeteria. Now, that doesn't do it, but the cafeteria helps a lot. It's hard, you know. It's you know, as living this, I said, you know, who else would take this job? I've seen a lot of it. You know, 19 years of growth is it's an incredible thing. And frankly, for some people, it can be an exhausting thing. You know, I look at the way that I've had to change my team, my senior management team, and throughout the ranks. And I've said recently is that of the original 20 Under Armour employees, I think we have 12 of the first 20. Of the original 100, I think it's closer to like 50. And so you look at the places where you knew the anchors and you knew the people that weren't there long. And look, things happen. Is sometimes the business outgrows people. Sometimes people get tired. Sometimes it's a good thing. People get rich. Sometimes people just look at me and go, you know what, Kevin? If I hear you tell that grandmother story one more time, like I'm going to shoot myself. So, and I'm like, good. You should go do something else. Because it's important that it's told. Like, it's important that people remember where we're from. And like, that's growing any company. But, teams are going to change, and it's our job to be able to move with that. But preparing for that growth, think about it. We're a $3 billion company a year ago, and we're thinking about plans of what does it look like if we've averaged 30% the last 9 years. If we average just 21%, we're going to be doubling our business roughly every 3 to 3.5 years. And preparing of just the way that you think about just allocating the resources. And that's all of our job as executives is we have limited resources, time, people, and money. There's only so much of any one of them. And so our job is to think about what's the best use of those resources to, get the most out of it. And when you're growing at that rate, people can't keep up, but it's a constant process of adding to that team. And it's always dynamic. It's never static, and something that must continue to move over and over and over. Maybe one more, Warren, or how are we?
Kevin,
Yes.
over here. Over here.
Oh.
You clearly have a lot of energy. And I have a feeling that a lot of us in the room are wondering what you had for breakfast or what you did before breakfast, and we want some of that. As an
I
executive
sat
coach,
next to Karen
yeah,
here
right.
at lunch.
Karen, we'll have to talk later. Related to the last question, as an executive coach, I'm curious how you tap into everybody's engagement and their soul and their connection to their passion so that it comes out in whatever they do, because you clearly have that.
Well, we had something a few weeks ago called Armour Day. And, Armour Day for us, it's a celebration of our team. Today, again, what started in a row house in Georgetown, myself and my partner, Kip Fulks, who was a lacrosse player at Maryland, today we're just under 11,000 total employees and teammates, as we call them. We had it's like a revival. We had close to 5,000 people, at what's going to be our new headquarters in downtown Baltimore. And, that energy is something that, it must come through. And it's everything from, unveiling the opportunities of where we've been, congratulating people, celebrating, the victories we've had, because that's the thing. In a growth company, in a high growth company, it's tiring for everyone. And like, you're asking for more, like another 20 plus, another 20 plus. And you've got to think is that every spot we have in the company is like a slot in our company. And not unlike a team is that we can't afford people that aren't thinking about you must want to grow in an entrepreneurial company. Is that if you're not thinking about how you're going to replace yourself, if you're not thinking about how you're going to force and hire people that will be bigger than you and have the ability to take your responsibility and elevate yourself, and as well along the way elevating them, you can't possibly keep up. I think about that mentality also comes with something that Under Armour's not for everybody. And it's a hard statement, but it's just not. And you find that out from time to time. And it doesn't mean that, the people that we've had some great successful people come from other companies. We had other people that, it didn't work out. When you're coming from a, Fortune 20 company that grows at 3% a year, it's different because you think you're ready for it, but the train's just moving. And the one thing in an entrepreneurial company, in a fast company, I've said is that I prioritize decision-making, over right and wrong. And I say that, knowingly that, I don't believe there's right decisions and wrong decisions. I believe it's just important that you're active and make a decision every single day. And then it's our jobs to either, number one, prove and make that decision right, or B, allow it to become wrong. And then more importantly, if we're doing it with enough humility, we're recognizing that, we're going in the wrong direction. So let's change directions. And I think like these sort of attitudes of at Under Armour, as I say, Karen mentioned my whiteboards earlier, but we are a lean forward company. It says things on our whiteboards which are thematic to us of overpromise and deliver, dictate the tempo, walk with a purpose. Like that's the mantra of the company. And it's just because, it's not because there's some greedy capitalistic thing or keeping up with the market. It's because that's the opportunity that we've been given. And the same one for me. And when I hear CEOs say things of, we're, again, nearly 10 years public now of, I don't do those one-on-one meetings with investors any day. And I don't know how many institutions are in here too. But like I do them. And I go to the Bank of America conference and I go to the Goldman conference. And you do it and you sit in these one-on-ones and you say the same thing for 6 1-hour one-on-one meetings over and over and over. And it's literally painful. But it's like, if I didn't want to, that's my job. And I have options. So if I want to do something else, I could go do it. But somebody's going to have to do that. And playing that role of, and you see people that become the kind of crazy, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm not really the CEO. I come here, I'm not supposed to show up in a hoodie. It's my job to put a suit on today. And I can say, but we made the hoodie. But you're going, nobody cares. And so I think there's a part of it is, you don't fight City Hall. And it's not a bad thing, but I think we're going to have greater influence with, part of the decisions we've made of how we can, run this company and ideally build, we want to build the next great global brand. And that's our ambition. And, I'm 42 years old and, we've had a great run, but, every year I sign up for a 5-year term. And, I'm not in year 2 or 3 of my 5-year term. It's like I sign up for a new 5-year term. So that's how I feel I am right now. And I love our opportunity. I love my team especially. And feel like we're going to build the greatest company in the world. So that's the goal. So thank you all very much for having me here. And Lauren, thanks very much.